Russia is in the grip of a third wave of the coronavirus that's threatening to overwhelm the country's health service. The capital, Moscow, recorded 144 COVID-19 deaths in 24 hours on Sunday. That's the highest rate since the beginning of the pandemic. And an average of 20,000 new infections are being reported across the country each day. Authorities are imposing strict new measures to counter the surge, as DW's Yuri Restaurateur reports.
St. Petersburg city beach couldn't be busier. With temperatures above 30 degrees Celsius, thousands of Russians have come to the Gulf of Finland to escape the hot weather and social distancing. Russia is in the middle of its third coronavirus wave, thanks to the rapidly spreading Delta variant. The authorities are sounding the alarm. The new mutation accounts for almost 90% of new cases.
The situation with COVID-19 is explosive. We have had record numbers of new infections. The mortality statistics are not looking good either. Here too. We've had record numbers of deaths within one day.
Officials are talking about more than 20,000 new infections every day, most of them in Moscow. To get the situation under control, the Russian capital has reopened field hospitals and built medical stations especially for coronavirus. Other hospitals are quickly being re-equipped to handle COVID-19 patients. But their main goal is to get more citizens vaccinated against COVID-19. Russia was the first country in the world to get a vaccine to market with Sputnik V. So far, however, only 10% of the population has been vaccinated. The government wants that to change by decree. From now on, all companies in Moscow must have at least 60% of their workforce vaccinated.
The mayor is right. Everyone has to get vaccinated to stop the coronavirus. They shouldn't force us. They should try to motivate us.
I'm for a lockdown. The virus will spread less quickly this way. Everyone should be vaccinated at home and get money for food at the same time. Then we will all be healthy.
Restaurants are still open, if only until 11 p.m. But in the future, only people who have been vaccinated, have a medical certificate showing they have recovered, or who have a negative PCR test will be allowed to eat there. They will have to scan a QR code issued by the Moscow Health Authority.
Of course, this means our turnover will be much lower, especially at the beginning until the customers have gotten used to it. But I think with each passing week, we'll feel relief with more and more people getting vaccinated.
But even these unprecedented measures are a far cry from the tough lockdown the government imposed last year as infections began to rise. Virologists say it's a case of too little, too late, and that the third wave could be Russia's most devastating yet.
And our Moscow bureau chief, Yuri Restaurateur, who filed the report, joins us now. Yuri, how well equipped is the healthcare system there in Russia to handle this third wave?
Well, Terry, hopefully the Russian health system won't collapse, at least here in Moscow. All resources are currently being activated. Actually, Moscow survived the first two corona waves very well, despite the quite high numbers of infections, both when it comes to inpatient and outpatient treatment. I can speak only from my experience. I also had the coronavirus here, and as a patient at home, I received a lot of care from Russian doctors. They came to examine me several times at home, and many friends of mine experienced the same. But not all of Russia is like Moscow. The situation in the rest country was often much more dramatic last year, and now we are unfortunately once again hearing about overcrowded hospitals where patients are placed on mattresses in the hallways because there are no beds left.
Now, Yuri, Russia was one of the first countries in the world to develop and export a COVID vaccine. How can it be that Russia is now way behind other countries in vaccinating its own people?
There are several reasons for that. When Sputnik V came out, the Russian vaccine had long been considered unsafe, not only in the West, but also in this country. The problem was that it was released onto the market too quickly before all the phases of the clinical investigation were completed. When that changed and the renowned scientific journal, The Lancet, finally announced that it considered Sputnik V to be safe and effective, hardly anyone here in Russia went to get the vaccination because there was hardly any advertising for it. Here in Moscow, there were only a few posters that were not taken seriously by anyone. But the main problem, Terry, is that Russians simply have very little trust in the state, and much of what comes from the state is not necessarily considered safe. And finally, the Russian state has downplayed the scale of the pandemic very much in the past few months. The message in the past year has been that Russia has almost achieved victory over the coronavirus.
Okay, it seems like authorities now are putting a lot of emphasis on vaccination. The idea of a lockdown is something they seem to want to avoid. Do authorities really think they can get through this third wave without a lockdown?
Well, virus researchers say that there is no way that these measures will be enough to stop the third wave. The only thing they could do is to minimize the extent of the pandemic a bit. Russians are not considered to be the most disciplined people when it comes to following rules and instructions from the authorities. We have seen this here in Moscow when it comes to wearing masks in the subway and public places, which is a must. People wear the masks on their chins or simply in their pockets so that they can't be fined if they are checked. But now the Moscow city government has introduced new measures against COVID in restaurants starting today. Only people who recovered from COVID or people who have been vaccinated are allowed in. You can only get in with a QR code, which means you have to register with the state health authority beforehand. Then there is a requirement that all employees in the service sector in Moscow must be vaccinated and that 30% of all employees in companies must work from home. But it's hardly possible to check that that measure is being carried. And as I said, Jerry, the most important factor is time, and it seems that the authorities may already be playing catch-up.
Yuri, thank you very much. Our Moscow Bureau Chief, Yuri Restaurateur.